This podcast is being brought to you by WXAV 88.3 FM and WXAV.com. WXAV, bringing the best podcasts to you.
Hi, this is DJ Holiday from WXAV, and today I'm here with...
Sal Abruscato.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
That's awesome. So I heard your band has actually a new album possibly coming out?
Yes, September 24th, we have a new album, Infernum in Terra, being released. Yes, September 24th. We have a new single, a third single coming out next week on the 27th, along with a video. So it's so far so good.
How would you describe the new album coming out?
Well, it's pretty much, it retains all the qualities of every album that I've put out. It's definitely dark. It's got a raw feel to it as far as the sonics are concerned. It's got a little bit of a retro thing going on as well. You know, we although it was of course recorded digitally, we mastered in such a way through analog equipment to give it a more of a warm feel like old records had. Mm-hmm. And I think I feel the fans will truly enjoy and thoroughly like. You know, you're gonna dig it. You know, it's just the next step musically for me.
That's really cool. So would you say, since you mentioned like an older type of warm feel, would you say that you would prefer the sound of maybe like playing music on a vinyl versus playing it on an electronic device?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have like this album is being released on a double vinyl set as well. Mm-hmm. So not only is it cool to listen to music on vinyl, but then you get to have like the supersized artwork, and you get to really, you get the lyrics, you get to really hold it in your hands. The same goes for the CD digipack, because the CDs these days are considered old also. But it definitely is something nostalgic in continuing to release albums on vinyl, since there's such a resurgence in people wanting to collect vinyl, which I think is awesome. So, you put that vinyl on, and to have a little more of that, of an analog sound, is more appropriate than having something too polished and crisp. So, it's definitely for those enthusiasts of vinyl. It's definitely very cool. We also have like some limited edition vinyls coming out where they're, like splatter vinyl that has like splatter, like the vinyl's all different colors and stuff. And of course we have the digital format where for those that are dead set on having MP3s, they can download and order, buy the music on iTunes or Amazon or any of those outlets. And you got Spotify, of course.
So would you say that the music industry throughout the years has evolved in a positive or a negative way with the addition of social media?
It's a tough question. I've transcended through so many different stages of the industry, starting with when, back in the time where people actually sold records and CDs and would go gold or platinum, and people physically bought stuff. And then as the years went by, things were changing. I think social media is a pros and cons. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good thing if you're a new band, you want to start out and try to get some kind of exposure. At the same time, it creates such a saturation out there that I think people just go right by you, and you've got bands that like buy, I guess, like they try to buy their likes and they try to look bigger than they really are. And it's a shame that labels look at social media accounts as a way to determine if they want to sign a band or not. Mm-hmm. Social media is it's a double-edged sword. It's great to stay in touch with your fans. I do like that aspect, that a fan can write a comment or a question and you can answer them, and they can actually have that split second of a direct connection with somebody that they follow or like. That's definitely a nice feature that we didn't have back in the 80s or 90s, or even early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, I think it's also very there's just a lot of garbage going on in social media, and I think it's, for all I know, it can all just implode and have a scenario of where it just fizzles out. There was a time where MySpace was the biggest thing on the planet, and then that fizzled out. It's just a matter of time where something like Facebook might maybe fizzle out. We'll see. So it's good and bad. That's all I can say. It's nice to stay in touch with people, but it also can work against you, where people can also hurt you with social media.
Oh, yeah.
And defame you and say horrible things. And this is why you have young teenagers, killing themselves over stupid posts
right.
on Instagram and Facebook and whatever, and Twitter. So it could be thoroughly damaging and thoroughly helpful. So you have to be careful. You can't put your whole life in it. That's for sure. Some people live by that.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll get mad at you. Why didn't you click like on my post? It's like, what are you, nuts? How about I just call you?
Right.
This thing of communication where people used to talk face to face or make a phone call is gone, and people rely on how many likes and comments they get on social media. Yes, it's nice to be praised or whatever, but it's dismantling the art of society and interaction and communication, and people literally try to meet people on social media and think they found the woman or man of their dreams, when it's just all fake, and you got people using filters. And I come from the days of like meeting someone in a venue and having a conversation, or a bar,
Yeah, I always love asking. That's always a really good question, because everybody gives a totally different answer, or sometimes people give a similar answer but then give totally different reasoning behind it. So I always think that that's a pretty cool question to ask and just get an overall opinion on, especially from like a music artist standpoint, because like you said, I feel like a lot of people can really promote their band or promote what they're doing through it, but then sometimes there's so much to choose from that it doesn't mean as much.
Right. It's just, there's a lot going on, so you get like overstimulated. So people are just flying by on their feed, just scrolling. So they're not even stopping to look at anything. So a lot of information. Maybe it's too much information for people to digest at once, and that's why I think people are so have anxiety or anxious after spending a little too much time in the day on social media.
I was looking up stuff about obviously the band and everything, and Pale Horse goes by like a bunch of different like labels. So people will say like, oh, it's this kind of metal, it's that kind of metal. What do you think about labeling music, and do you think that that's constrictive to art, or do you think it's helpful?
I'm not, labels, everyone's going to say it sounds like this or that. It's just inevitable with fans and people. I don't like to call myself too much anything. I just like playing heavy, old school type of Sabbath-y type of tune combined with like my other influences, whether it's the Beatles or Bowie and, maybe Trent Reznor. And so some people call this, one thing, and they say it's another. I mean, whatever they want to call it, fine. As long as you like it, that makes me happy. If you like it, that's great. If you want to call it doom or dirge or grunge or 90s Renaissance, whatever it is, fine. Just if you like it, then I gotta respect that. But I don't know. For me, it's all it's hard rock, heavy metal. Some doom. Doom seems to be an appropriate name on certain elements, but at the end of the day, a lot of doom music does not have catchy choruses or melodies. So it's a combination of a few things, of hard rock and metal and doom, and a little bit of some of the older materials, a little bit goth here and there, and yeah, that's my roundabout vague answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one where it's like, you could make the argument that labels could be constrictive to art, but for some people that might be how they find certain bands or artists, so it can go, that's another question that can go definitely either way.
Sure, it can work in favor if a fan is looking up something. I want to get into more doom bands, and they'll type of doom bands or whatever, and all these bands come out on a list, and then they start checking them out, and they might find bands they really like. And so that could work in a good way, but I think the labeling can be constricted if it's an expectation. Where, well, they're a doom band. How come this record doesn't sound doom? Or they're a heavy metal band. How come this band doesn't sound like that now? And so, like, that's the promise fans are gonna expect the same thing over and over, which I think, people naturally progress as they get older and more experienced and wiser. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, it can be a good thing, but it should be an expectation.
And so we were talking about vinyl earlier. Are you a personal vinyl fan? Do you have like a vinyl collection of your own?
I have some. My wife has a huge vinyl collection, so she's big on the vinyl and has the turntable downstairs. And she loves collecting vinyl, especially old vinyl. She sometimes sometimes people will put on the posts or marketplace posts about, giving away a box of vinyls, and she's the first one to run out the door and grab that box because she might just find like a gem within that, which she usually does. So we do together have quite a bit of vinyls. I have my vinyls from when I was a teenager also. I have also boxes of CDs, lots of CDs, hundreds of CDs. So she's the vinyl expert, though.
Oh, nice.
I'll give that to her.
So what was the first vinyl that you ever got?
Well, it was the first one I had was like the 45 of the Beatles' Help, which I snagged it from my mother, and then but then I went out and bought the first Black Sabbath, the Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz when that came out.
Oh yeah.
I went and got that on vinyl in 1980. Ran out and bought whatever was coming out at that time. There was the Iron Maiden, the first record, which had no title on it, and then Killers, same thing. And again, I was starting to get into some alternative metal back then too, where the thrash stuff, when Metallica first came out, and the first Anthrax record, Fistful of Metal, and then the Merciful Fate vinyls, and Manowar, and started, and getting, of course, the Sabbath stuff on vinyl, all the ones that came out before I was a little bit too young to get. So that was pretty much the genre that I was getting at that time.
No, that's awesome. Those are all like pretty good, solid records for sure. And
Yeah.
One last question. What does college radio mean to you?
College radio has always been the underground outlet and vein that you could tap into to discover music that mainstream stations would not play. I always thought it was again, after being involved with college radio, playing the music of the bands that I've been in since late 80s, I think it's a very important outlet for bands to be discovered, and I will hope that it sticks around for a long time. And although I'm sure it's tough it's gotten tough for radio, I think, with the satellite stuff.
Yeah.
But I think college radio is great for the young people that are getting involved in broadcasting and in the business, and I think it's a great thing for young bands to get exposure that would not get exposure on the popular stations on satellite or radio. So it's always been, to me, college radio has always been that underground outlet that would be the cool thing to listen to hear bands, like whether it was back in the day when I was younger, like whether it was alternative new wave or metal, or you got to listen to bands that were not on the mainstream radio stations back then, and that was how you got into some new stuff and were ahead of everybody else with band discovery. So that's what it means to me, and I think it still hopefully plays a very important part, and will continue to play an important part in people discovering bands that they like. So that's what it means to me. I think it's always been a good thing. I think it's good for students as well to get into it, to learn about the business. Hopefully it doesn't go away with time, because the way things go, they're always changing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's been a very, very big, helpful thing throughout the last a bunch of years, whether it's 30, 40 years of helping bands get exposed. And, 30 years ago, Metallica was not being played on mainstream radio. Ozzy and Black Sabbath were not being played on mainstream radio like it is today. It was underground radio stations that were playing that music. At one time, Ozzy was considered bad. Black Sabbath was considered bad by the, FCC and all of that stuff in the 80s. So, if it wasn't for college radio, you would not be able to hear that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, it's crazy how much things have changed over time and everything. And
oh, yeah. Now, it's in commercials and on TV. So,
right.
This was the guy that everybody feared when he bit the head off of a bat. He was considered a devil worshiper by all the church people in the 80s. So it's great that it turned around for him the way it did. But it just goes to show how things have changed. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today and everything.
Likewise.
Thank you very much for listening to this WXAV 88.3 FM podcast. Be sure to visit our website, wxav.com, for more information on your escape from ordinary radio.